you're going to be tuning into this weekend's fight, here's a tip. Check out my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. Upgrade your fight experience this weekend with the official sports betting partner of UFC. Are you new to DraftKings? Check this out. New customers that bet just $5 will instantly get $150 in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the code SONNEN. DraftKings, the crown is yours. That's right. New customers can bet just $5 on anything and receive $150 in bonus bets instantly. DraftKings is giving new customers a shot to get in on the action all night long. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy where you have the chance to win cash prizes. Don't miss out on all the action this week at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings app today. Sign up using dkng.co/Sonnen or through my promo code SONNEN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Paddy the Batty. Fatty the Batty. You know, I've never really liked that. I never really liked that because, one, you're teasing, right? You're teasing somebody. And that might surprise you coming from me, but I don't feel like that's trash talk, by the way. I don't feel like that's building a fight. I feel like that's teasing. I never liked it when people called him Fatty the Batty. I also thought it was kind of a nerdy group of people that cared what another guy weighed. Cared that the guy ate a box of donuts. Like, I just thought, this is really weird. This is going around social media. I thought, what a bunch of dorks. And I never covered it. But Paddy's now doing it. Paddy's now put out a piece saying this about himself. He called himself, as a matter of fact, Family Guy character Chris Griffin, which, by the way, is quite funny. But
which is the son.
My problem with Paddy's weight going up and down is just from a physiological standpoint. You cannot gain weight without consuming more calories than you're burning. So when I would see Paddy put on, in some cases, and in the case of this article that he put out, these are his words, 42 pounds. When I see him put on 42 pounds, I don't know how that would be possible unless he's not in the gym and he's not training. And that would be very concerning. There are most certainly two types of guys. And I know guys. I'll name drop for you because they're world champions. Luke Rockhold, the late great Evan Tanner, that do not go in the gym until they have a fight, until they have a signed contract. And in their mind, that's when training camp begins. And they only need that 8 to 10 weeks. They were convinced of that. They believed that from day one, and they turned a career into it. When you fight 3 times a year and you're in training camp for 10 weeks at a time, all of a sudden it's half the year. It's a pretty good amount of time. Like, if you put that in comparison to other sports that have seasons, it's a pretty good amount of time. But, and I would see other guys. Randy Couture be a great example of somebody that was really disciplined. Randy would have a fight on Saturday, and regardless of what happened, he could be black and blue. He could have won or he could have lost. He was in the gym on Monday. And how sore he was and how black and blue he was might affect the intensity, but he would be there on time and he would do the entire workout. He wouldn't duck out early. This is just how he did it. And when I see Paddy the Batty gaining 42 pounds, I don't know how this is possible if he's going into the gym. And when I watch Paddy, I do feel he has an intangible that a lot of people haven't identified and credit him with, which is his conditioning. I've seen him come from behind because he got a guy tired and he kept that pace up. And that's something that you can't do with the part-time program. You just can't. You got to be a real technician. You got to really rely on your martial arts skill, your DNA, your athletic ability. So it's very contradictory. I have a hard time figuring Paddy out. I have a hard time pinning him down. I believe, and it's got to be the right 2 fights, but I believe that Paddy is 2 fights away from fighting for the championship. Not only because the organization would make it, if it's the right 2 fights, he's just going to be the number 1 contender. I really feel that win over Bobby positions Paddy in that type of direction. He's got a new contract. He's not as young as you think, by the way. And Paddy's 30 years old. He's not a little kid. He's not the new kid. In fact, he's a married father of two. I mean, I just share for you, like, it's not a matter of, hey, let's build this guy and he can be a really big star. He is a big star. He's been built. It's time. The time is right now. But I got to go back to my concern with the weight. I can compliment Paddy, and I can compliment that he's never missed weight. And I can compliment the skills that he clearly has. But there is a but. There are things that we haven't seen. I am on the right path with him. I am on the right path that he is going to be fighting top guys now. He is going to have named fighters. I like the idea of Justin Gaethje for him. I like the idea Dustin Poirier is talking about doing one more. If that's true, if you can really get him for one more, boom. I like the idea of going down that road. Right? I'm talking about that kind of level. And then one more. It's pass or fail. You can't help a guy at this point. And if any of you are laughing going, he's not ready to go for these guys. Oh, well, okay, that's the point. It's the UFC. Right? It's the ultimate. And I'm sharing that because when I say he hasn't been tested, one thing he has not been tested is his championship rounds. He hasn't been in them. He hasn't even been scheduled for them. He hasn't trained for them. And it is different. If you change one rule in a sport, you have now changed the sport, right? If I go make a football game 3 quarters and I just go back over time, the history books are completely rewritten. If you change one rule, you change the sport. And I will tell you, from personal experience, I remember when it happened to me. Got a call. Gonna fight a guy named Paulo Filho. It was a title fight. It's gonna be 5 rounds. And you sit down and just mathematically try to figure that out logically. All right, that's 70% more, so I'm going to need my runs have got to be 70% more. My sparring's got to be 7% more. Whatever it is, it's one of these situations. And it's more difficult to do than you might think. Like, you feel different. You start training different. You start training harder. It changes things. The way your body feels changes. And as your body starts to get more tired because you're putting more stress on it, all of a sudden you're showing up to practice, but you're reduced. You walk into practice on an average day in training camp at about 70%. So you'll have guys during your training camp that are beating you or at least doing better with you in rounds than when it's the shoe's on the other foot. When you're the training partner, you're not taking it serious. You're not doing 2 a day, and he is. You're going to come in, you're going to do a lot better with him. It's the opposite of what you would think. Like, that peaking process is very different. And I just bring it to your attention because Paddy has clearly identified it. Paddy has clearly identified it in this piece that I'm watching. He's joking around. He's having fun. He's showing the scale. It's going to be a problem at some point. And it's a very fine line. Whereas an athlete, you have to know your body. I know when it came to cutting weight, like if I was 8 pounds over, I needed 90 minutes to get that off. And if I told that to the average person, they wouldn't know their number. They would not know how long they needed or what it was they would need to do, what temperature the room needed to be, or what exercise they would conduct while wearing what clothes. They wouldn't know what it would take for them to get 8 pounds off. But I illustrate that just to tell you, like, everybody knows their body, and Paddy does appear to have a handle on this. But things change. Each year is a little different. Each fight, you're stepping up just a little bit. And pretty soon, this co-main eventer that's selling all the tickets, you don't have a choice. You've got to put him in a main event. I think his next fight's going to be a big one. Big name. But I think the one after that is going to be a big placement. I think that's when all of a sudden you've got a main event guy. So now whether we're talking titles or not, we are talking 5 rounds. And letting yourself go to that extent after a match, it's really something. I don't like to talk about it, right? I don't like to talk because I feel like it's teasing. Now that Paddy's brought it, now that Paddy's the one that's put it public, if Paddy is open to advice from a stranger, that is something he's not going to want to joke around about, that he's not going to want to accept and make part of his identity. That is something that he's want to get control of before the scale shoots up 42 pounds.